Uh, as you guys must be knowing, customary to how we start all our networking events. How do we start it? We start with 3 of the time members making a small, quick presentation on their business. Yeah, we don't like to call it a pitch, but it's just about a quick sharing of their passion in their business. So the first to go on that round would be, let me call Abhijit Nath from Sofit.
Thank you. My name is Abhijit. I represent Sofit Infrastructure Services Private Limited. We are a company. Okay, no, because I'm going to refer to this. So, okay. So, as I said, we are a IT infrastructure services company. We started our business in Kerala, and we've been 6 years old in the business, and currently in Bangalore for little over 6 months. The services that we do is managed services, we do IT consulting, we do audit and assessment, and we are a vendor agnostic company. We have close to about 35 people. These are skill trained engineers that we have. And most of our clients have been micro, small and medium enterprises. Over the years, we have seen success with healthcare, automobile dealership, manufacturing, real estate builders, and developers. One of our service which has been well received is IT infrastructure based on open source. So we have created firewalls, mail servers, authentication, open cloud. So pretty much everything on open source. And by doing this, we have helped our clients save more than 80% of their cost on licensing. Our service portfolio includes IT infra health check, consulting, project management, and managed services. Some of our customers are Manapuram Finance, ISAF Microfinance, PVS Hospital, Srivalsam Medical College, Popular Motors, BRD Car, Kunal Construction, BCG Builders, KLF Nirmal, Shakti Papers, etc. So thank you very much. Thanks, Anjali.
So can I have Subbu? Subbu's company is Oriole Technologies.
Hi everybody, my name is Subbu. I'm a serial parallel entrepreneur. I run multiple businesses simultaneously. Today I'm going to share about one of the product company that we built, and we're very proud of it. How many of you have understanding of a manufacturing plant, how a manufacturing plant works? Lovely. So 2008, we were exposed to the challenges of a complex manufacturing plant. This was luck. I don't come from chemical or production background. So 2008, we came to know that an ERP enabled manufacturing plant suffers because of ERP. And ERP is the biggest bottleneck because it is too complicated. The workers don't know how to use it. There's a lot of paperwork that happens because people don't know how to manage ERP. So they take printouts, and there are operators who do the entire transactions. So we jumped in and we said we'll build something to simplify the entire process. And today we have 5 factories globally that run end-to-end manufacturing process on our software. And then we do at the back integration with SAP. So we ride on top of SAP and we provide the entire factory automation software. We are a team of about 4 people. We make a revenue of about $250,000 annually, and we are a proud product company out of Bangalore, India. Now, the reason why I'm presenting this today is, one, to let you know that we can build products and solutions out of here. Two is, I'm looking at expanding. We have a huge growth path in front of us. So anybody interested to be part of a product venture, please do connect them to me, and we'd love to talk to them. Thank you.
Okay, Ravi Shankar from Aim High.
Hi, I'm Ravi Shankar from Aim High Consulting, and that's my colleague Elvin, who's going to be here until the end of this session in case some of you want to know more about what I'm going to talk to you in the next 2 minutes 50 seconds. communication consultants are very good at picking up phrases. I am also a serial parallel entrepreneur. Okay, so the parallel things that we run are communication consulting, advertising, brand consulting, public relations, all of this for a whole range of companies, but mostly for startups. And if I tell you some of the names, I'm sure at least some of you will be impressed. The companies for which we started out doing PR amongst other things are Flipkart, Ola Cabs, Fashion Era, Common Floor, Carrot Lane. You should visit our website aimhighIndia.com and you will see that out of the 45-50 clients that we work with today across the country, at least 50-60% would be startups of one flavor or the other. I'm saying mostly consumer internet driven businesses, mobile driven businesses, companies like that. We have quite a few success stories under our belt. Important to mention that at India level and at Asia levels, in multiple forums we have been called the PR agency of the year, and that not really, I'm saying we are a 6-year-old company, not strictly a startup. I'm saying because we work with so many startups, we tend to behave like startups and keep borrowing other people's phrases. So so that's about Aim High. 2-3 quick questions I will answer for you, so that it forms the basis of a conversation if there's going to be a conversation amongst us. People ask me, startups, at least 10, 12 of whom I meet every week, ask me what's a good time to start PR. And I'll answer that question and leave more questions to be taken at a later stage by Elvin Jacob, you can raise your hand, or by me, he'll be carrying my card and you could reach out to me and then I'll answer more questions. The most important question is, like I said, what's a good time to start PR? The good time to start PR, in my opinion, is when the direction for your business is set. When you are fairly certain that you are identified clearly as a going concern. I'm saying somebody who is not there for the short run, but is going, it views business as a going concern. Every business should ideally be viewed as a going concern, which is there for perpetuity, and your direction is set. No shortcuts in PR, unlike many people tell you. PR is not a relations business, it's a cerebral business, and a good PR consultant that you will hire should have this ability to understand your business and play it back to the media, something that we really pride ourselves upon, and which is why we are very proud that a lot of startups work with us. And I think that's time. Anjali was getting ready to show me the time, and I'm done. aimhighIndia.com is our website, and Ravi Shankar is my name. Elvin Jacob is there in case any of you want to answer any questions. Ask any questions and he will be happy to answer. Thank you so much, and sorry about borrowing your phrase.
So all the 3 of them are available, and you can speak and ask more while we network post dinner. So now for the main part of the evening, can I request a very active mentor and charter member at TAI, Parag Dole, to please come over and welcome and set context.
Thanks, Anjali. Thanks for coming, all of you, on a weekday. So I stand between the main course and you guys, I guess. So I'll keep it short. I'm not terribly appetizing as it is. So I'll take you back, just one story. I'll take you back to 2013 years back. I was then at the venture arm of GE, called GE Equity, General Electric, that is. We were investing in this company called Jatayu, which is based out of, I guess, Jakur, then got merged into Comviva, eventually Mahindra, I guess now. So, and we were getting the final signatures. So 2 of us went into Pramod Bhasin's room. Pramod Bhasin used to be the head of GE Capital then, subsequently head of Genpact as well. So we went into his room, and while he was signing the paper, he said, "Do you really think somebody will do things on this small mobile?" Jatayu, if you know, Jatayu was basically a WAP company which made micro browsers and servers on the telecom side for operators back then. This was 2000. So we didn't really answer the question because the objective then was to get the paper signed and get the investment done. So he signed the paper. So 13 years later, standing here, it seems like he was really short-sighted and couldn't look beyond his nose. Even though 13 years is a long time, and you need a long nose, really, Pinocchio's nose, so to speak, to look beyond that. But as you all know, today we are in a totally different situations. The what's and how's of it will, I guess, be taken up by the August panel. What I'll do is I'll just take a moment to introduce Sridhar Pai, who is the moderator. Sridhar is the CEO of Tonse Telecom, which he started in 2005. Before that, he was at places like Motorola, Intelinet, and Zybridge. And he is a BE from Mysore University, and I think an MBA from Oklahoma, if I remember correctly. So he'll take over from here, and I hope all of you have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Actually, this is the first time I've been here. And it's such a warm and cool place with wooden things, and I feel the only thing missing is a fireplace and a few drinks, and I think we're all set for a really cool round table. I think the chairs also should change. I think we should all be sitting more closer. I mean, any more closer, we'll be sitting on each other, I guess, right? But thank you, Anjali, and thank you, Tai, for giving us an opportunity to be here and meet with some of the folks that I've experienced in the industry, that have done things and have a rich set of observations and are doing things, for example, with the telcos, outside the telco, in the enterprise. I think we have a very interesting set of folks to share some thoughts with. But before that, let me quickly give a brief background to what, taking on from where Prakash left off. I remember the discussion about Jatayu, right? And so if you remember, I don't know how many of you have ever seen or heard or noted about Jatayu, going back 13 years, right? Do you realize that Jatayu was actually the first wireless IM company? And if you look at it today, I think the valuation of that company would have been 1,000-fold. So you're absolutely right about this nose and the vision, right? But if you fast forward to today, and you look at what's happening around us, right? The level of churn in the enterprise, for example, of all kinds, large, small, medium, global MNCs, Indian companies. I think that level of churn, the only word to describe the chaos that's happening in both enterprise as well as mobile is churn or fluidity. Call it what you will. Let's look at it in two ways, right? So essentially, we have this really large topic about enterprise mobility, how and what of going mobile. But with 45 minutes, I don't think we can do too much justice if you look at the whole thing. So let's just take maybe 2-3 aspects of this topic. So if you look at enterprise mobility per se, I would take away two pieces, right? One is, let's say, the enterprise infrastructure and the people, users, devices. So if you look at the devices, the short way to describe the entire phenomenon in the devices space is maybe BYOD, bring your own device. This is a key element of what's happening in the enterprise, right? Everyone wants to carry his own device. The MIS or the CIO cannot say no. You need to give them the compliance. You need to make sure that they deliver. At the same time, you need to protect your assets. You need to make sure sessions are secured. You need to make sure your intellectual property is protected. This is a big deal for the CIO, number one. Let's look for a moment away from this and let's look at the organization as such and resources, the people, right? How many of you have heard of ELANs? I don't know, I didn't realize that ELANs is currently doing generating about 100,000 jobs per month and has total paid out about $1 billion, about $950 million something in earnings to the freelancers worldwide that have participated in ELANs projects. Can you imagine 5 years ago, a freelancing portal generating 100,000 new jobs per month, every 30 days. Now guys, if you notice, this is directly a reflection of the level of churn in the organization resource structure. In fact, even CEOs are available on hire from Elance. CEOs, CIOs, chief marketing officers, designers, data entry people, researchers, marketers, and PR firms, right? So what are we talking about here? We are talking about churn at an organization level, resource level, device level. Let's step aside for a moment and look at enterprise infrastructure, right? The traditional enterprise infrastructure has grown, obviously, but it has grown to the point that it is now beginning to impact telco infrastructure. You notice that? Who is the largest telecom infrastructure provider from a data center, IT, of the telco perspective? If you look at it, it's the traditional guys, the Oracles and so on. But if you notice, in the last 1 year, Oracle's telecom infrastructure, telecom assets, and telecom offerings have become significantly large. It's no longer just the server blades or the server farms for the OSS and billing hosting and so on. It is also signaling. They acquired Tekelec. They acquired session border controller company called Acme Packet. It's a very big entry. If you notice from a higher level, this means that traditional enterprise infrastructure players are now beginning to enter telco infrastructure. And the telco infrastructure players, the traditional Ericssons and Alcatels and so on, are now getting into services. Right? This is churn again. But this is the level of churn we are talking about: devices, people, enterprise infrastructure. Okay? One more level of churn. How many of you have heard of Mashery? Okay. Mashery is a company that was built to productize APIs. Okay? Now, recently they got acquired by Intel for a good reason. Because according to Mashery, the world is moving into what they call APIfication of everything. Right? We talked about it briefly. Publishing houses are no longer publishing houses if they don't have APIs. I don't know if Times of India realizes this, but it's already beginning to happen. What do we mean by that? We mean that the democratization of IT and information has reached a point where global established business leaders, nice one, are beginning to realize that new information publishing has to come from anybody, could come from anyone, through cell phones, through smartphones, through tablets. Anyone in the world, somebody sitting in a bus stand in Nicaragua can start publishing information real time, factual, with data, with video, to Times of India sitting in Bangalore, and they don't have to wait only for their own journalists. Citizen journalism is a small step, but talk about global journalism. And all of this is happening through APIs. And an aspect of this was formalized by GSM Association recently when they announced the GSM 1 API, about 2 years ago though. Now, so, if you look at the telcos, the interesting thing is the telco world wants to do a number of things, but they have such a rich legacy of their own infrastructure, their own models. They're trying to fight that battle, untangle that, and come in and beat the onslaughts from the others, right? The OTTs and others. So I think that's another very interesting piece. And the important thing with relevance to this topic is that telcos are beginning to enter the enterprise through what we all call the cloud. Correct? WebRTC, one last aspect of enterprise and retail that I think we should quickly talk about. If HTML5 is something that you're all familiar with, WebRTC is this really cool thing from Google that potentially could convert every browser into an IP endpoint. In other words, every browser will now be allowing you to make calls and do videos on the fly. In other words, if you're buying something from Flipkart or something, you don't no longer have to go and set up a separate call or click to call. Based on the context, one key and the context, the call center person responding to you already knows exactly where you are and what you're doing, and he'll take you from there and complete the form and so on. So these are the revolutionary things that are happening both in IT, enterprise, as well as telco infrastructure. I think that have the potential to transform everything to a large extent. again, hopefully, we'll all have the vision, the aptitude, and the interest to look beyond our noses. Having said that, let me take this opportunity now to quickly introduce my key panelists here. We have with us Pratap Bernard today. Pratap is the Vice President and Head of Vodafone Solutions Emerging Markets. And he's currently also the Head of Data Services, Center of Excellence, Emerging Markets for Vodafone. I know he sits in Bangalore and is a key member of the global Vodafone strategy team. So Pratap, would you please? Thank you very much. Let's give him a big hand, guys. Next we have Raja SR. Raja is the AVP of Strategy for Saskin Communications. Raja is an experienced professional in the area of mobile and analytics, e-commerce, and communities, and strong experience in creating large and sustainable ecosystems. I'm sure Raja will bring a very strong perspective. Raja, please, let's give him a big hand, guys. Also from I7 Networks, we have Srinivas. You're here? Yeah, Srinivas. Srinivas has been associated with computer networking and network security industry for more than a decade. He has worked extensively in the area of intrusion detection systems. So I think there's a very strong security aspect that will come to this discussion. Raja, please. Srinivas, please. Thank you. You have to give me 10 seconds to drink a sip of water, please. That looks pretty cool. Okay. Thank you very much, folks. I'm very happy to have you guys here, and I think we had a few minutes of a pre-conference discussion on the phone. I'm going to stand because this position of the chairs reminds me of, of the fireplace again. So we'll just do this, right? So I hope you guys don't mind. So, folks, let's do this. Let's look at those three aspects of the enterprise discussion we had, right? And that is, one is fluidity of the devices as well as resources, and churn in the organization overall, right? Plus, the enterprise infrastructure piece that is churning so much, right? Now, any opening comments, Pratap, yourself, or Raja, anyone wants to pick and give some opening comments before we begin?
So
do you really think it's such a big deal, or do you think, well, it's just part of evolution?
It's more than a big deal, and it's a struggle. So whenever I approach the topic of enterprise mobility and mobility at large, I've always been humbled, despite having the privilege of working with real customers for several years now. And I think one of the issues is that everyone accepts the need for mobility from an enterprise standpoint. But when it comes to committing that dollar, there's a huge gap between the talking and the commit. And we've not yet crossed that bridge, right? And there are reasons for it. So maybe in the discussions, I'll elucidate some of the reasons, but I'll stop at the first comment.
Thank you. So basically you agree, it is a big deal. It's a very big deal, right? Pratapa, it would be very interesting for all of us to get a view, and I don't necessarily mean mobile alone, telco in general. Since you're a service provider, I think that aspect will come strongly from you. Do you guys feel the same? Do you guys believe it's a big deal?
Check. Sridhar, while the challenge itself looks very daunting, I mean, when you consider mobility and you talked about some of the dynamics that's happening, not only the complexity of the infrastructure and devices, but also at the speed at which they are changing is one of the other things that makes it very hard to pin down. To me, actually, I see enterprise mobility and all the dynamics that are happening around us as actually an opportunity. The same way that Prakash talked earlier about in terms of Jatayu and really looking at what the future holds and what the opportunities are. There is, this is a fundamental, I look at it as it gives organizations an opportunity to rethink their businesses. And in that sense, it's a big deal. While I share the sense of dread that the CIOs and the IT organization, the IT faculty in many organizations go through, I believe that organizations need to be smarter and look beyond it. And as Raja left it, I'll leave it with the word opportunity at this particular point in time. To your specific question about in terms of from a telco perspective, what does this mean? Clearly, we are really pushing the boundaries of mobility now. Earlier it was about talking about laptop access and being able to sit at home and do your work, not being connected. But now staying connected makes all the difference. I was just looking at a very interesting stat earlier in the morning where it said, when is the first time you actually look at your mobile phone after you wake up? And what was interesting to me was the choices given. As soon as I get up, 1 minute later, 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, 1 hour later. I mean, it gives you a sense of, it's probably something that you do even before you brush your teeth perhaps. So staying connected becomes the prerogative, and therefore the role from a telco standpoint in providing reliable, dependable, scalable, and secure communications becomes the paramount. And for us, from a service provider standpoint, one is providing those infrastructure services, and the second aspect of it is then to allow businesses to innovate around it is probably where the opportunity really is.
So I'll pick the last point you made about security. And let's pass the question to Srinivas, right? My understanding is right, Srinivas. I think at I7 you guys actually focus heavily on the security aspect of BYOD. Now, I'm not sure how many enterprise IT folks are here, but I can imagine, and I used to be with Motorola years ago, and I think it's it is such a Garangutan organizational routine to change your laptop. Now talk about BYOD, right? Talk about someone logging in from his BlackBerry and then an Android phone and some other tablet. And at the same time, you cannot say no because you're already running low on staff, and then you need these talented people to log in from everywhere and do a great job. So how many of your customers actually come back to you and say, is this really something you can make secure?
Yeah, because whether enterprise IT likes it or not, BYD is going to stay and it can only grow. That means more headache for enterprises, enterprise IT I mean. So the need of the hour is, the problems may look same. Problems are same, like security is same, malware is same, and access, attacks, everything is same. But the solutions won't be same anymore. Because enterprise IT is typically used to perimeter security and checking device sanity. If you classify all the security systems in IT, there are only two types. One is you check at the enterprise, and the other is you make sure that device is sane, device doesn't have any issues and all. Both are not possible in case of BYODs because you don't know what device is coming in, and the device is already inside the network, so perimeter security won't work anymore. And the second thing, it's not easy to check sanity of the device. Talk about Android fragmentation and talk about a new device manufacturer customizing Android for himself and just releasing in the market and employee walking in with the device. So it's absolutely not possible to check the sanity because you can't even define what is sanity in mobile world. The ecosystem is different, the kind of apps that are running are different, everything is different. But enterprise IT has a quick fix because the companies which are already into network access control and security, they are just rolling out some agents called like a network access control or just an agent. You walk into the network, you walk into enterprise network, install an agent, and let me monitor you 24/7. But it's my device, it's my iPhone. I don't want you to monitor when I'm at home or when I'm at vacation. So that agent thing won't work. But as a quick fix, enterprises are rolling out agents. And again, that also fails because Android fragmentation. You cannot have agent for Micromax. Micromax releases a different system every day. HTC releases a different system every day. And new Androids, you can't port on all the devices. So it's just not possible to have agents on them. And then enterprise IT cannot get into the devices because devices are not even owned by enterprise IT. So that's a big problem. That's the first problem. And then, as you mentioned about complaints and audit, for example, if there's a legal issue and court wanted you to, like under e-discovery, surrender a device. How do you surrender the device? It's not even owned by enterprise IT. So these are all issues sound same. There is an issue, we have to surrender the device for e-discovery. And there's an issue, at perimeter we have to stop. And there is an issue within the network, we have to scan the device. The issues are same, but the solutions won't be same. So there is a big opportunity there to develop solutions for this kind of ecosystem. I would like to leave at that and take it further.
Wow, already sounds very difficult. All right. So another aspect, right? We have, let's look at new service creation. And I don't particularly have a sequence for these questions, but I'm just thinking because it's, I think, a huge opportunity. And I'm pretty sure there are some developers here who are, we already heard a couple of them, right? Now, we've seen a plethora of services creation happen right here in Bangalore 6-7 years ago. For example, we had tons of mobile VAS providers, right? Of course, it may have started off with screensavers and ringback tones, but then it went on and on. It created a fairly large industry, both for the telcos, for the mobile world particularly, to the point that many device companies started wanting to embed these into the firmware and so on. So there is an opportunity from a developer perspective to create this fantastic, rich, vibrant ecosystem of enhanced services for the mobile world. But are we beginning to see certain things, similar things in the enterprise world? My question would be interesting to recreate another opportunity, right? For example, now, although for various reasons very, very localized in India, we have pretty much bottled the broadband revolution to, hopefully some magical thing will happen and it'll open up. But without getting into the 4G and the spectrum and so on, we do have a sizable opportunity, I would imagine, in the enterprise world if services started coming up. Now, what do we need to do? Firstly, do you agree that there is an opportunity? Secondly, what needs to be done to throw that open? Do you want to take a crack at it?
Just to take a step back first, when you are coming from the web world onto the mobile world and you're keeping enterprise as the context, one needs to realize that all the legacy architectures have been built keeping the web clients in mind. So they have a certain scalability, performance, latency aspects to it, and every piece of engineering is to give a fantastic experience on the desktop and the browser. Now, from an enterprise perspective, that thing now needs to be quote unquote ported, done new on the mobile side. Now, mobile typically has been the playground for developer communities, right? But it is significantly different when you approach mobile application development with the consumer in mind, where most of your client code is resident on the mobile device and you have a distribution mechanism through public app stores. And when you look at the enterprise, because it is going to be specific to the enterprise, and because the code is not going to be resident completely on the mobile, there's a lot more complexity that comes in. So if you look at it from the opportunity standpoint, yes, every enterprise will have mobile application development as an opportunity. I'll give you a thumb rule, in a recent webinar from Gartner, and I quite agree with it, that if you have one software engineered business process in an enterprise, one software application from the website, web world, can translate to as many as 30 to 40 mobile applications on the client side, on the mobile client side. So the opportunity is huge. But the execution of that opportunity is where the rubber hits the road, right? And that is not an obvious skill. So I'll leave it at that, come back to it. Maybe, you can take views from Pratapa as well.
Yeah, I would definitely welcome a Pratap's opinion on this, because I remember the Web 2.0 hitting Telco 2.0, and I was thinking we should coin a new term, Enterprise 2.0, but go ahead, Pratap.
Again, as I said earlier on, I'm going to be a little probably pushing the envelope in here. Traditionally, when we talk about enterprise mobility, our thoughts come about in terms of the IT infrastructure serving our internal employees. And I just want to roll back a little bit in terms of what the web did to our businesses. Yes, of course, it did help employees to be more productive. All they needed to know was web environments, etc. But it actually fundamentally gave businesses a new way to engage with their consumers. The second thing that it did was it opened up dramatically new markets and new opportunities and new environments. And finally, when in the process of embracing and delivering services to our new customers, we actually were able to internalize that and make that relevant for our internal systems as well. And I believe that is what the challenge, or that is what enterprises need to look at today. While looking at what mobility means for us, for my employees and my IT, I think it's important to pause and think about what does it mean for my business. And there's an opportunity to reimagine your business actually. Just think about insurance companies. You just think about all the new businesses that have spawned in the last 10, 13 years as a result of the web world. Yeah. I mean, you're able to serve customers sitting in the US. I mean, customers are based in the US, you're able to serve them sitting here. You talked about ELANs. Yeah. It's created a market opportunity for them. So what does mobility mean for reimagining businesses? And I just want to throw an example on the extension of ELANs in here. I'm not sure if anybody has heard of Text Eagle and Nathan Eagle. Has anybody heard of him? Okay. Nathan Eagle is an ingenious entrepreneur working in Africa. He launched this service called Text Eagle, and it's a little more fuzzy version of ELANs, if I may put it this way. So there were companies that were actually generating maps and a whole lot of other landmark-based information codes, and they had no way of verifying actual ground reality information for a lot of parts in the African subcontinent. So what Nathan Eagle actually had was a system where a company could actually send a requirement saying that, okay, I'm actually giving driving directions for, say, Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, but I have no clue whether the signboard actually says, or that building exists, or that landmark exists, or anything else. What Nathan Eagle essentially did was, he had people with basic phones, consumers with basic phones, thousands and thousands of them registered with him, and he would say, hey, listen guys, I need you to go verify whether these landmarks exist. Plain and simple, nothing else. And just as much as elans.com does for research or advertising or PDF or marketing or anything else, these guys would go walk the streets, figure out, yes, landmark exists, job done, he gets paid for it. So you're not really talking about employees anymore. You're talking about crowdsourcing, but crowdsourcing to actually deliver your businesses. So basically what I'm saying is that there is an opportunity to reimagine your business, to reimagine who your customers are, to reimagine what the opportunity that enterprise mobility begins. There's another dynamic. We have all heard about Google Glass. All examples of Google Glass are with respect to consumer things about saying that I'm viewing a landmark and I'm able to I'm getting driving directions as I'm going. Think about it in the manufacturing space. We talked about it earlier on. Imagine if somebody was facing a machine and all the instructions of the control panel was coming on your Google Glass. Now that's an enterprise application for you. That's brought about by enterprise mobility. So it's up to us how long we want our nose to be and how much further that we want to look beyond.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So, Pratapa leaves it at a very good point. It's a promise. But I'll bring in a little bit of caution. Okay. And here's the point. Let me share some statistics. Slightly dated statistics. End of 2012, disclosed VC funding for the consumer side of mobile applications was of the order of $1.8 billion, of which, of course, Square probably bagged 200 million of it, right? Mobile commerce and payment bagged about $1.1 billion. Right? Healthcare bagged about $350–400 million, and the mobile IT side bagged about $650 million. And you can take these numbers with a bucket of salt, because it is only those disclosed deals, and I'm quoting some of the numbers from the Radberg research report, end of 2012. But it just says that while the promise is there, one needs to have faith. The direction is right, but as we speak, everybody is acting cautious, at least on the mobile IT side. I give it to the fact that, on the mobile consumer side, there's a lot more, validated traction. But on the enterprise side, what Pratapa said is probably the seminal piece. Until and unless businesses reimagine their business, enterprise mobility isn't going to happen. And this takes guts. It takes guts to challenge your existing processes. It takes guts to challenge your existing enterprise infrastructure. How many of you, I'm sure many of you would have heard the new mobile middleware infrastructure called an MEAP. Right? So it is a necessary middleware to enable enterprise mobility. I'm sure Srini will be quite aware of it. But that's there for a reason. And whenever there is new infrastructure getting inside the scheme of things, it rattles the cage, right? It is also true that, the way from the seller side, you will go with a value proposition and say, for your business, you can now create an avenue where none existed. And that's exactly, what Pratapa exemplified with the Nathan Eagles example. But what happens in enterprises is that until and unless you find a cross match between your DNA and passion with, somebody from the buyer side, it's very difficult to move.
Or you keep on attempting to find that matching DNA and something finally works and you have to have the energy to run all the way, right?
What might happen is, you tried for maybe a year to catch the deal, and finally when the mind was made up, somebody else entered and took the deal.
Timing, right? Half the deal, half the story is timing. Okay, one other aspect, let's also look at the not bright side of all this, right? Like I think you touched upon it. Are we really talking about a fancy world waiting out there for everyone to jump in and make their $1 million and build those killer apps for the enterprise? I don't think so. What do you guys think? Do you think there are no challenges at all? Are enterprises waiting to throw it open? And then, for example, we don't even know, if you look at telephony in the enterprise, things are still not changed, right? We still have PBXs getting delivered in the same old world, right? You cannot even translate, you cannot even export a phone book from the PBX to the mobile today. This you could not do 10 years ago. You cannot do today.
I'll pass the mic to Srini, but just 2 comments to straight away answer your question. I write my company's external blog on enterprise mobility. My first blog was titled The Promised Land, Enterprise Mobility, the Promised Land. Okay, so you already have part A of the answer. The recent blog that I wrote was more like, enterprise mobility, myth or reality. So there you have part B of your answer. But it's not so, I don't want to paint such a morose picture.
There's a cool
way
to come back to the blog.
So from the Indian customers that we keep visiting for deploying the product that we are developing, which is a BYOD security product, what we see is when it comes to enterprise mobility for enterprises, it is about their customers, not for their employees, at least in the Indian context still. We visited companies which have like 25,000 employees in a single campus, and their BYOD policy is very simple. Don't connect to corporate network. Bring whatever phone you want, make whatever call you want, don't connect to corporate network. It's as simple as that. Or it will be like only for CXOs to download their mail, they can connect. That's the current enterprise IT's standpoint. You can't blame them because there are no solutions to protect enterprise IT security today. So the solutions are something like, yeah, employees can walk in and get an MDM kind of app, a mobile device management app, which is developed for a particular model of Android 4.1.2 developed by Samsung. You have to put this app. And that's just not possible. You have thousands of versions there and thousands of models there. It's not possible. And it adds only burden on enterprise IT. So employees keep walking in saying this is not working, that's not working, and it adds a lot of burden to enterprise IT. So the simple solution that they're going for today is just don't connect to corporate network. Or wherever it is allowed, they put a restriction tightly bind to your MAC address and just say only mail download, which you can as well do through 3G network sitting at home. So enterprise mobility is there, but only for their customers, not for their employees. So nothing is being exploited, at least as of now, from the places that we are visiting today. That has to change to really exploit the power of that.
Let's quickly start engaging the audience here. Anybody developing enterprise applications that have actually been deployed on a fairly large scale or even medium scale? Yeah. Can someone pass the microphone, please?
Hi, good evening everyone, and it was a nice talk to start with. My name is Prasad. I represent VitaMap software. We provide mobile workforce solutions for markets in India and Asia Pacific. One point I would like to bring it out here is the mobile revolution actually is bringing in new employees, connecting them to the enterprise who were never part of the network in the first place. So in a lot of enterprises, for example, in our solutions provides field force productivity solutions, where you have your technician coming into your house, repair your UPS or your data center UPSs. These guys were never part of the enterprise IT because they were always mobile. So the opportunities for enterprises to enable them to improve their customer satisfaction, to really engage the customers to the new level is thrown open with the enterprise mobility. So people are finding ways. We have seen one of our customers has deployed around 800 technicians who were never part of the enterprise IT, so now they become part of their infrastructure. So people look at it in different way. As I said, his DNA logic is very clear. There are people, there are early adopters who are very aggressive, who would like to make use of the opportunity. They look at it as an opportunity, and always there's resistance from the IT team. But I think people are finding ways. We're able to deploy in very low cost Android mobile phones, very fairly large scale, and there's huge level of improvement in productivity across the organization. And I think it's throwing a really large opportunity in the coming days.
Let me just quickly add to his point. We were actually doing work for agri-business company, seeds, fertilizers, and work that they were doing in. And essentially, they were coming in at a point of view in terms of saying that, hey, listen, I have no idea of what the inventory out on the field is, and farmers don't necessarily use my produce in the right manner, so therefore we get a lot of returns, etc. And there's no way that I'm actually effectively able to manage my distribution and my stock. And can mobility really handle that? And I'll cut this long story short, but we stepped in from a point of view and I said, okay, let's back up just a little bit. I understand you're looking for a logistics and an inventory management capability, but the fundamental problem that you have in here is that the person who is distributing or engaging with your end consumer, who's the farmer, okay? Now, that is where your leaking bucket is, and that is where your information gap is not being closed. So we actually worked with them to say that how their field force, and to your point of people who were never connected before, we talked about a mobile solution that they would have on their hands that will allow them to go engage with farmers and give them location-specific advice in terms of how to use seeds and fertilizers. I mean, at the end of the day, agri-services are not uniform, right? What works in Mysore does not work in Chikmagalur, and so on and so forth. Climatic and all those environmental conditions are there. So they have a large field force engaging with them, but they're engaging with books and paper and mental knowledge and everything else. And all of a sudden, we brought mobility into the picture, and guess what? Inventory management became a byproduct. Okay? So, and that's one of the constant, and that's one of the reasons why I said I would like to push the envelope in here. And again, I would like to say this. I mean, think about, we talk about security, and I understand security is a big concern. And of course, your MDM, I have it on my iPad here, otherwise Vodafone wouldn't allow me to access my mail and do all my stuff in here. And I understand why that thing is necessary. But for a minute, just think. Take train ticketing and booking. There are thousands of consumers who are accessing that on a daily basis and booking tickets. Is that breaking the system? Is Indian Railways going into a thing? You figured out a way to manage the security. Now, once you allow consumer access, then roll back and say, what are the privileges that I can give my own employees? Okay? Now, that's another way of looking outside in. Once you've solved it for the most difficult environment, where you have an unknown person with an unknown device accessing your system and getting information out, then imagining as to how you will be able to provide services for your own employees who need privilege access probably becomes easier. I'm again, as I said, don't get me wrong, I understand the scalability, and if anything else, I'm all too aware of the challenges and the fragmentation aspects that Raja brought out, the security aspects that were mentioned earlier as well. I'm all too aware of that, and I understand the concerns in there. But the solution for it is not going to be inside out. The solutions for that is going to come in outside in. And I think that's where that's where I went back to my earlier point. We need to reimagine our business to see really where the opportunity lies.
You know, I think that's so true what you're saying, because if you go back and see the whatever revolutions we saw in the mobile world in terms of value-added services and so on, I think I don't believe really that maybe 7 years ago, I don't really think an Airtel would have actually thought they would create a separate business unit for music. Irrespective of what Apple did in the US, I don't believe that in India or even emerging markets, operators really planned, because that opportunity came out of nowhere suddenly. So somebody else discovered it, not that. So I think what you're saying, Pratapa, is absolutely true. It's not obvious, but I think those opportunities are hidden somewhere, and somebody is going to break it and crack, bring it out.
I just had one more thing to add. And all this time we are fussing around laptops, mobile phones, tablets. We all know about Internet of Things. We all talk about M2M. Just imagine when that comes into your business, heck, that also forms enterprise mobility. Let's be clear on that aspect. And that's going into the market. That's going to be in consumers' homes. That's going to be in people's hands. It's going to be in a place where nobody is attending to it. I mean, it's going to be on top of a water tank or a power that's accessible to anybody who can climb that water tank. So what security? Physical security also. What technology security? You need to start worrying about physical security of those devices. So the paradigm that we're talking about, I think while we need to be cognizant of the challenges, I think approaching that problem from approaching it as a problem and approaching it inside out is what is hampering us today. And if you approach it as an opportunity and approaching it outside in from what my consumers want and what the market wants, and bringing it outside in might provide faster solutions to that whole piece.
I think I like that example quite a bit. To deal with enterprise mobility from where we are today, two issues to deal from a business standpoint. One, enterprise don't know how to price it. Okay, I can tell you this with experience. So, approaching the topic in India, it is safer if you approach your business from cost leadership standpoint as a start point. It will be pretty safe strategy to go. Situation in developed markets in North America is different, but if you are bringing in the SME market in India, start with cost leadership and definitely have cloud enabled services as part of the offering. That works and is a sustainable business. Pricing, it is going to be a discovery model. I mean, Pratapa mentioned about the outside in approach. How do you price a perceived gain or a gain related to outcomes? Because mobility is so related to outcomes. So this whole business model of outcomes related pricing structures is going to throw a big challenge to traditionally executed business models.
Well, I'm not so sure. I think it's an interesting point, Raja. Thank you so much. I think let's throw this open. I think we'll have some more interactions, because I'm thinking are we saying that just because the price has not been set, we should take a cost approach? This is not directly connected to the topic on hand, but the model of the business model I think is crucial, because I'm sure there are developers here, maybe they're halfway through development or even past prototype and they're about to price. So let's see, so anybody here has some specific inputs on pricing of enterprise apps? Yeah, how about microphone here? You want to take this one? Just to get another view.
So, as you mentioned, we have developed one enterprise mobility for insurance company, and the price.
Why don't you use the opportunity and give the name of the product?
Sorry, I could not.
Free branding.
Sorry, I could not tell this name, but we have sold it to the US company.
Okay, given the customer's name.
But
okay, I'll let you go.
I will let you know.
Offline.
But, offline. Okay, so how we have priced? We have priced, on the outcome basis. I said, okay, if let's say, your claim get improved by this percentage, then give me, this percentage cut on that. Because that's a B2C
so
market.
That's a cost thing. So you're taking a percentage of the cost off it, and therefore the cost benefit.
It's totally outcome driven pricing that we have adopted for the US client. So similarly, we have done it for the UK client also. I mean, but it's not an insurance based. It's something different. They are in the airlines, so they are agreed on that. Okay, if something get some, let's say, my sales collection improved by this percentage, then I would pay this much of the amount.
Actually, this reminds me of an interview I had with Verizon about a month ago. This person is actually the head of M2M services in Verizon North America. And I'll just share this very quickly here. And I wasn't aware, this is very interesting. For truck drivers in North America, there is a new M2M based app that is programmed into the trucks that they're driving. And there is a back-end application that is mapping the age and history of driver to the current driving conditions, based on which, if he is complying in that range, his premium will not change. But if he is speeding and so on, then his premiums will change, which means it is a very outcome driven thing. So we are actually heading to a point where even the pricing, I think, of apps is going to become outcome driven. So that's going to throw a new dimension to revenue sharing. Right? All right. Interesting. Any other comments or questions?
Just to add on the pricing and also one of the ways for you to enter the enterprise model, what our experience is, you have to figure a way out than the existing model of sales, not time and material nor packaging. So one of the ways, I think two models exist, which is typically subscription based or transaction based. This is purely from our experience. So if your app is solving a transactional problem, allowing more transaction to happen or making an existing transaction efficient, so and for that transaction, for the enterprise is getting revenue for them, so you can price them on a transaction model. Because every transaction they make certain money out of it. So the investment, the ROI is pretty simple. You give a small percentage, they pay for the transaction, and the business user or the CIO can show their management, ROI is very simple. I pay X rupees for this transaction. I make 3X in my revenue. So this is one way. If your solutions are solving the revenue part of the transaction, you can look into that. Another is if it's on the cost part of it, typically they associate that cost to the employee cost. They add to the employee salary, the app subscription cost. So that's one way you look at it. But never you approach with a package model or a time and material model, because people don't know how to look at the returns on this investment. So typically tied to the business which is you're solving, and then understand how your apps can add value to the business. Outcome, we don't know, because outcome you need to understand a lot more dynamics of the business which may not be in your the vendor's control. Thanks.
Somebody at the back wanted to, you have a comment?
No, I just wanted to add to your comment. So, in North America, there are some companies who actually give a discount, insurance companies who give a discount if they can let you read the car diagnostics, just to understand how the driving habits of the drivers are. So just again, helping them understand what the driver is, and based on that they give those discounts. So just that.
Okay. Any questions to the panel? Or, yeah.
Yeah. In terms of enterprise mobility, there was a fair bit of discussion on what is a enterprise is a large employee base. But what we are essentially, the other part of the discussion was about the workforce mobility, the device connectivity, the service chain management, channel partner management, and remote health, remote attendance management. In the last 18 months, there are 3 problems which I tried to solve. One related to mine, not the scandalous mine, but the what do you call the road metal mine. A big owner in a place wanted to stop the leakage, and I was looking out how to put together this whole application for him. I thought this should be easy. There was a challenge there. Another, a construction company had multiple sites. They were trying to solve the problem of remote attendance. Leakage, attendance, real problems to be solved. And a third one is about the geotagging of a lot of assets on the road. So the government has a lot of road assets, right? A construction, a bridge is an asset. Another technical problem we are trying to solve. Now, this is what the enterprise mobility, and these are real problems to be solved, right? We tend to look at a one-stop solution for all. And whether, just like web browsers solved the problem of applications, will there something which will come on the handset? But I would like the panel to comment on this, that how are we solving these real problems?
So the 3 use cases that you mentioned, I will take it into the middleware layer and propose how you can create a set of solution accelerators that will help you to reuse. If this is a mobile application that you are trying to render on the device, you can create your own visual templates so that you will not recreate the screens across use cases. You can actually code literals and have a configuration file at your backend which will change the persona of the screens. Okay? That's the second solution accelerator. Third, I'm not sure how you are implementing the whole solution. I don't know if there is an infrastructure piece that you have. You have a server piece. Then I'm not sure what is the hosting model of that. If you're hosting it yourselves, at least my computations across my use cases tell me that it is cheaper to host yourself rather than go to an Amazon just yet, right? Now, the fourth piece of accelerator that you could think of is the data pipe engineering aspect. Irrespective of the use case, you will treat data at rest, in transit, and at the backend in a certain way. So, you take care of the data persistence, consistency, synchronization. So, synchronization can be the other solution accelerator for you if there's a lot of data that has to exchange between the endpoint and your server, right? There are a couple of more, but maybe I will pass it on to Srini if he has any inputs. Then maybe offline I can share a couple of more solution accelerators.
I mean, I'm not going to nowhere come anywhere close to any of the solution design that Raja was just talking about. But just as an aside comment, we come across this very often, right? In the sense that there are real business problems, real challenges, whether it's an entrepreneur, whether it's a business, they have these propositions that need to be solved, and they don't know what the technology challenges are. I mean, how to go around and solve that from a technology standpoint. And on the other hand, we have, from a developer ecosystem, we have people who are trying to figure out what's the next big thing to really build and how do I really make that a billion-dollar thing. They're very good at writing code, they're very good at solving technology problems, but really have no clue on the business side of aspect of it. So one of the things that we're actually doing from a from our thing is actually we're trying to bring these two bridge these two pieces and actually have a forum where developers and businesses meet. And actually there is, I mean, we've started a program called Innovation Through Collaboration to actually address these, because as Raja was describing earlier on, there are many different ways to handle this thing. And I don't think it's also pertinent from the business standpoint to try and understand all the various technology aspects. There are people who are well equipped to be able to solve that. It's a question that there is no forum today that actually efficiently brings these minds together and really unlocks those opportunities in there. We talked about this problem earlier on in terms of mining, roads, assets, Salesforce management, and how do we handle that. The other space, we talked about agriculture in the area that we were working on earlier. The other area that we are actively working on is actually in education, right? And actually rural education, and how do you really bring mobility to transform education in classrooms in the remotest corners of the country. And not many of you may know, we actually have 1,000 school deployment of a program called Learning with Vodafone, which actually brings state-of-the-art content into remote corners in Manipur and villages in Rajasthan as well as down in Kerala. In a nutshell, again, there the challenge was when we were talking with the schools and the administration, they were looking at IT in terms of saying, okay, I need to do attendance management. I need to be able to tell how many of my students attended class today, and how do I inform parents if they think. So it was an classic enterprise mobility solution proposition that they were looking at. When we went with the outcomes-based approach that you talked about and learning-based solution that was targeted to the students, attendance became a derived problem, or a derived solution, if I may say so. So again, and unless and until you get into that situation, you do not know what the solution is going to be. So I think there is that need to bring the solution players, which is the developer ecosystem, meet the businesses, which is the people where the problem lies, and really then unlock the opportunities in there.
Yeah, I know. I think we are also aware a little bit about Vodafone has this global program where you have innovation that is being taken to multiple circles worldwide, right? Okay, so thank you. And feel free, I mean, we have some more minutes, and any questions to the panel? Please, Kiran, go ahead.
Kiran here. You talked about rural, the opportunities. But as you see that when the application is becoming much more complex and the demand and the process is going up actually. And but if you look at it, there's a huge mass of the rural places where we want to bring on the mobility side. But is it just in a reality, or is it just when we are talking in only metros today to look at it when the smartphone and then accessing these applications by these metro people who have the more smartphones, but when you want to really make this or available the rural side, where the language could become a barrier, then the network become a barrier, then accessibility could be a barrier. How are you really going to address those things? Unless those things are done, I think it's more towards the metro-centric than the mass-centric.
We are working with a entity called Digital Green on the agricultural side. In one of my visits to one of the villages where they operate in with these farmers, it's way beyond Hunsur. It took me almost about close to an hour and a half off the main road to really get to that village. And of course, not to mention the type of roads. In fact, there were a bunch of us. We actually drove in 3 Tata Innovas in there, and they actually thought that the local MLA had turned up, okay, so the whole village turned out. But that's an aside. The interesting aspect of it is that one, in terms of the type of devices that they use and the capabilities, you would be very surprised in actually the maturity of the rural market in terms of the type of devices and the capabilities that they have. It's not your Samsungs or your average Samsungs and your Galaxies, but definitely yes, your Micromaxes and your Lavas and even your Samsung Corbis and all of those devices, all of them have cameras. They are quasi-smartphone, if not smartphone capabilities, and also the consumers are fairly savvy on how to use it. It's just that we need to address the usability problems. We take metro solutions to rural and expect it to work, and that's where the problem lies in. To your pointed question, in the education solution that we are doing in, we actually did a hybrid solution in the sense that we designed a proposition that is designed to work offline. And then when it comes in coverage with network or network availability, for us, some of the problems are nothing to do with network and things. One of the fundamental issues is there's no electricity most of the time. Okay, and so technology doesn't work. And in fact, mobility is the only savior because that's the only battery powered device that's working in such a context, right? So we actually had to come up with scenarios where offline working was allowed, and then when you come in into the network coverage area, you go things. So there are hybrid situations that you can work through. The solutions are fairly elegant once you think through again from that particular angle. And mass rural adoption is possible. It just needs people to get out from the metros and really go in there and explore this.
I totally agree with that, because we've seen this earlier even in case of mobile gaming, for example. Not necessarily enterprise app, but mobile gaming. I think 2 years in a row, the guys that actually won the first prize were small town kids. So it's, I think we shouldn't take it lightly. I think it's a serious thing. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, actually talking about rural areas only, can we develop a social enterprise? I'm totally a newcomer to mobile applications, where we can develop application for farming. Farming is a very complex situation. You very nicely said that what works in Mysore will not work in Hunsur or some other areas. So there is a cropping pattern, there is a soil structure, there is rain patterns, and there is seed. So many variables are there. Are you people doing anything on that? Because we are trying to develop something on that line.
There are several initiatives around that. I mean, with some of the work, and of course, from a Vodafone standpoint, we're looking at enabling and adding the mobility to existing solutions and businesses around. But I know many companies, including Intuit, RML, Reuters, TCS, whole host of people having farmer-related solutions or agri-related solutions. I also mentioned the other company with which we're working with is Digital Green. To your point on in terms of localization, one of the key challenges in terms of farming is that language is a huge barrier, not to mention literacy is a big challenge. And adoption, even if you have the most ideal solution, it either has to come from two sources. One, it has to come from a figure of authority whom the villagers all respect, or it has to come from a peer whom they all look up to, okay? And if it is, I can bring the most fanciest voiceover and create an application and provide them with giving all the insights, nobody's going to buy that. So Digital Green is actually working on propositions around using the farmer to share their best practices and do that. So in a nutshell, there are content and mobility solutions and a plethora, and quite a few of them. The key problem is scale. All of them are currently at the 2 lakh, 3 lakh farmers, but nothing that's national, nothing that is global, that's nothing that really serves the 70% of the market that is rural today.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to add one point to that. There is a system called Aqua, almost all questions answered, which is developed by a professor in IIT Bombay, which involves Department of Agriculture in Maharashtra and farmers in one area. Unfortunately, I can't recall the company which is spawned out of that product actually. You can search for Aqua. It is almost all questions answered. That involves farmers and Department of Agriculture people on the same panel, and they can have continuous discussion. It's not developed for mobile, but by now probably it would be supporting all kinds of mobile system. You can check that out.
There are also, recently I've heard about a new startup which is called Soil IQ. What they're doing is they're just generating some devices which is put into the farm land, right? And it talks about humidity, growth, so and then it informs your mobile. So it's trying to, raise your crop, or you need to put some, it's reduce humidity, the weather is changing into water. So some basic things, and it's all again connecting what's on the ground, on the land, and then beeps are sending across. So it can be, they actually are doing, I think per acre they need 4 sensors, and they have done that already. They have implemented in I think Africa or some parts of America and South America. Recently I read about that, so it's on the same lines, and they are doing crowdsourcing of best practices. So that's where it develops.
RTBI in IIT Chennai is a good place. You could refer to RTBI, Rural Business
Voice Technology Incubation. I think it's run by Professor Ashok Junjunwala. A lot of innovative companies are there, especially focusing on rural. And voice seems to be a very key element here as part of the solution. Pratap, you mentioned about that hybrid type solution. We had done a experiment with the women's self-help groups and connecting buyers to sellers within the self-help group community, both through voice. It works. Voice works actually, and very key point mentioned by Pratap is that you don't need a fancy voiceover. Just get them to speak. Just record their voice in their dialect and their language, and it will work. It will work. It can be as simple as that. If you want to upgrade the solution a little more, we did this very neat amalgamation of voice and GUI. On a cheap Android phone, you can have icons. If let's say you have a farming app, you have relevant farming icons. But if you think that you want to combat literacy, you add voice to that. When a user presses that icon, there's a feedback saying that, do you want to do this? Or, so there is innovation possible. So voice is an important element if, you are trying to address the rural market.
Amazing.
And to your point, to both the gentlemen's point on agriculture, and I think one of the other areas in rural that's really a hot buzz place is actually healthcare. And the simplest part to actually start is, I don't know how many of you have heard of the term ASHA workers, the healthcare workers that are part of the National Rural Health Mission. And these are essentially class 10, class 9 pass outs from that village who are essentially going out and doing child monitoring. This is the National Rural Health Mission. The Government of India has this program called MCTS, Mother Child Tracking System. And essentially they track the progress all the way from pregnancy through to 3 years of the childbirth, ensuring that all the inoculations and vaccinations have been done. Now essentially they have a network of primary healthcare centers, auxiliary nurse midwife, which is called the A&M, and then finally the feet on the street, which is the ASHA workers, which are from the village, to actually go keep track of what's the thing. And usually these people actually go around carrying a big ledger, okay, and having to maintain the track. One ledger is to keep track of what the patients and what's the weight of the baby, was there any illness, have inoculations been done, and all that sort of stuff. And another ledger with, depending on which village they're going in, okay, here is how you need to, why do you need to do polio? Why do you need to do whatever else, okay? And providing educational tools and multimedia animated video like what Raja was talking about. So we actually, and this is again a place where mobility comes in and plays a role. It's an enterprise solution because at the end of the day, it's the ASHA workers who are getting enabled, but it's now engaging with the consumer standpoint and really providing healthcare information in there. So that's another angle. And again, we are again in those scenarios, we are working with the context of no data and no coverage. And offline working is a critical element for it to work. So the ASHA worker goes into the villages, spends the whole day, and when they come back into the town, when they get their 3G or 2G connectivity or whatever else it is, all the information is uploaded back into the central servers for the government to monitor.
Amazing.
Okay. We are working in education segment and primarily into training and development. So it's the traditional methods what we deploy in terms of collecting the data and pushing the data as well. So we were keen to know, is there any mobile applications and solutions, some use cases from your respective organizations where we can look at?
There is a company called Harness. Are you aware of it?
No, not really.
Harness. Okay, they have a product. I can't recall the product name, but you can search for Harness. They deployed in, I think, Austin, a big school district is covered by them. And they're actively developing solutions for several schools in India and US.
If I can just understand, sorry, what is the need?
Okay, so when we say training and development, it's more about, let's say, to give you an example, we work on education segment as well as corporates. Education segment more to do with the career enhancement programs. Right, so when we talk about career enhancement programs, it's a traditional method like giving them, it's all about sitting with them and giving the paper. It's more of paper full office. So we wanted to deploy a mobile application solutions where it's easy for us to push those data and content to people and also to capture the feedback.
We can more than happy to have a offline chat. We're actually currently working with ILFS. And as you know, they have the mandate from the National Skills Development Council, NSDC, to actually enable the rural youth to be employable. I mean, today, as you know, many people are qualified, but they're not employable because of the basic skill sets that are necessary to work in a services or in any of the environments in there. So they're actually looking at providing vocational training and auxiliary training to make youth, especially in the rural areas, employable. There's also, there's a Bangalore company called Team Lease. I'm sure many of you would have seen, heard them. They're out near Koramangala, National Games Village next to that. So these are these companies which are actually doing skills, vocational training. At Vodafone, we actually had a proposition called Virtual Classroom, which was intended to deliver vocational training both in the enterprise context, Salesforce training, retail training, enabling your retailers and consumers, but also for vocational training for students using very basic mobile phones. So all, out in there, they may not have 3G connectivity or 2G connectivity or even data for that matter. The users may not have data connection on their phones, etc. So we do have solutions, and there are a few companies that are working in this space. And of course, we've been tracking the Reliance Entrepreneur event recently. It was a virtual distance education proposition, entrepreneurial idea that actually was shortlisted from Bangalore. So probably that's another angle for you to track in as well.
Great. I would like to discuss this offline.
Sure.
So one final question, just out of curiosity. I mean, based on all these discussions, I see this game is completely about the enterprise and also the end user. So I'm just curious to know how much is it welcomed by the end user? Ultimately, it's the end user who takes the call. And especially in India market, how much do you see that is my question? Because so out of all this discussion, I see all these applications are too scary and too much of monitoring. So how do you see people, I mean, as an end user, they welcome this enterprise app? I think this plays a big role, and is there much things available to educate them?
As far as end users are concerned, actually you cannot enforce a lot of the security or the policies that you otherwise would for your own employees and staff. Okay, so in that sense, it's a far more complicated challenge for you to address in terms of being able to provide them with quality access and usable services, while at the same time protecting your infrastructure and the environment that you and the technology environment that you're offering to your consumers. So it's a different challenge. Unlike your employees, where you can mandate them to use a particular service, no matter how complicated or how troublesome it is, that is not the case from a consumer standpoint. And therein lies, it's as much as it is flexible, it has its own different set of complexities, because if your product doesn't deliver the value or the incremental opportunity for the business, they're not going to take it.
Quick comment from my side for that question. There's something called convenience disrobes discomfort. Let me say what that is.
The reason behind
10 years ago, you would have hesitated to go to an ATM in an unknown location. Today you don't. 5 years ago, you would not have picked up diamonds from carrotline.com. I still don't, but I'm sure you would.
The problem.
All right, you had a question, gentlemen.
Yeah. So,
no.
Go ahead.
So, I'll try to pull it back a bit because I'm interested in the monetization aspects. Because what I have experienced in the last 12 years of being in enterprise mobility with different companies as an entrepreneur, not monetizing very well. So, what's the panel's view on when it will start getting monetized? Because every technology does. At some point in time, it starts as philanthropy, and later on, somebody picks up some nice ideas. So, when is it going to happen?
2 points to comment on that. First is that from an executive standpoint, from a management standpoint, businesses or management looks to try and defer the decision as long as possible because they don't believe it's immediately necessary. It's a luxury that they can live without, okay? The only time that they're really going to start taking that seriously is when they see that it is a business opportunity and not a cost-saving opportunity. So that's transition number one, and that's why I said it needs to have a different approach in terms of thinking of how you bring enterprise mobility in. And I'm constantly, in fact, when we talk about it with our customers, and the challenge that we have is to say, well, for a minute, forget that you're trying to serve your employee, or you're allowing your employee. What would you allow your consumer to do? What would you allow your customer to do? Okay? And how would you provide regulated access to them, or controlled access, or secure access, or reliable access, whatever else terminology that you want? And then after that, scale that in and say, by the way, you know, all the stuff that you need to invest in doing them, it's the same stuff that you needed for your employees as well. And that's how you bring in technology in-house from a cost. So it needs the change, as long as it is not something that is nice to have, or it's something that I can do without, and it actually transforms business or opens up new avenues of business, then it gets management willing to loosen the purse strings. The second thing is that, and we talked about the business model earlier on, I don't have a specific view on the business model or in terms of the dynamics of how pricing works in there and thing. But what I can comment on is, I remember how earlier on when we were working with Star TV and some of the media houses, in terms of using mobile for the televoting, there was actually a resistance from them in terms of saying that, no, we don't want to do televoting, etc. And thing, because it was perceived as a cost. The moment we changed it around saying that, hold listen, every time the user sends an SMS, from an operator, whatever revenue we earn, we'll give you a share of the revenue, it suddenly became a revenue proposition for them. And guess what? Pretty much you know how many channels are there with user agent voting and all sorts of malware that came along with it. Okay, and I think there's some sanity returning into the system. But again, it just went into turning the business paradigm upside down and saying that, okay, this was earlier a cost opportunity for you, but now you actually can make revenue. And then it pretty much opened the floodgates for it. So the nutshell is, I don't know the specific answer to when will the floodgates open, but the management thinking is very clear. The moment it is business, the moment it is new horizons, the moment it means consumer engagement, they view it far favorably than when it comes to saying that, oh, it's a flexibility that I need to give my employee from working from home. Yeah, and therefore, I don't know if there's any Marissa Maya fans around, so I don't know what they have to say about it.
You know, can I share a joke? You know, I come from Mobile Monday, right? And we started, Sridhar knows, we started in 2006. So the joke in Mobile Monday was, from 2006 until almost 2012, location-based services used to be buzzword, right? Every year was the year of location-based services. Every year was year of LBS, okay? Be prepared for a similar hype for enterprise mobility. Every year will be the year of enterprise mobility. But let me sort of bring a positive reality here. Whenever in the industry there is a gap between the talk and the actual commit, catch-up always will happen. And you want to be there when the catch-up happens. So it is an enduring game. We are enduring, you are enduring, right? So that's about, you know, will it, it's not a question of will it happen, it's a question of when. And you know, you talk about consumers, you know, if enterprises are resisting to engage their consumers on their mobile, can they resist the consumers engaging the brand on the mobile? They are already doing it. You know, in all the social media, they are already doing it. So the enterprises don't have a choice. It is just that, you know, the technology and the business models are complex. And you know, once it is crossed that barrier, it will happen. There are several, you know, great stories of adoption in mature markets. Even in India, there are excellent examples. It's just that there are not too many to talk about. And you know, I can tell you that, you know, in the infrastructure, in the mobile IT infrastructure space, there have been successful exits. Yeah. You know, middleware infrastructures, they have solid exits. RoMobile bought over by Motorola Solutions, Worklight bought over by IBM, and you know, Kony in talks with, you know, one of the big fives. You know, they will see. So success is being seen, from the enterprise IT, the IT infrastructure side, and that is good news. Because once this piece gets into the hands of those players who have traditionally served the enterprises, mobility will become a lot more easier topic.
As a follow-on, what has happened is that when I speak to the investor community in Bangalore, they say, oh, you're an enterprise mobility? Not a fundable idea. You're close to ERP? You're not a fundable idea. Because the minute you are speaking of enterprise, you are going to be near ERP. You have to be. You're either on whichever part, the HR part you discuss, the logistics part you discuss, the inventory management part you are near ERP. So today, enterprise mobility is not a fundable idea in terms of investors here in Bangalore. What is the answer to that?
So a couple of, let me just add one perspective to that. I think there are two things, right? One is taking off from where Raja left it. I think it's so true what he said about, that's the reason the Gartner hype cycle has this long jump to adoption, right? Now, I think one of the underspoken or underestimated risk in entrepreneurship is the criticality of timing, right? If you're too early, you just have to hang in there till it happens, and it may never happen, or it may happen after you just moved out. So there's a huge risk, and I don't hear too many people really acknowledging it, but I think that is real. That's what you're going through. For example, that is one. Second is, we are not talking about the sustainability of the idea. I think that idea is real, and if it's meeting one customer's requirement, you will survive. You may not thrive. The thriving will happen after you hit critical mass, and that critical mass hitting will only happen when market adoption happens, exactly like what Raja said. And that's one, right? And that I'm just saying it again. The other piece that you talked about, this enterprise mobility being a bad word. Unfortunately, I think that is true. That is the reason you should reinvent your story all the time. For example, today if you go and talk about CRM, I don't know if too many investors will even want to get into a discussion with you. And if there are investors here, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But if you talk about customer experience management, then they'll say, hey, I want to talk to you. So I think you should reinvent the story all the time, even if the core proposition is the same, because there could be a use case which is actually $1 billion market. The technology at the back is the same, possibly.
I disagree that VCs don't look at enterprise mobility businesses. I presented my business to a VC. He said, become a parallel to a single entrepreneur, I will fund it today. And I said, no, I'm not for money. I'm doing my business. I wanted input on some strategy. But he said, this business is fundable. Where you stand will invest. It's not a scary space to be in. I'm in enterprise mobility. I do inside the factory and outside the factory. But I do mobility for the entire enterprise. And VC did not run away. He was very keen to explore.
That's the other thing about VCs. You should always tell them, I don't need the money. Then they come after you. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, more questions. Our panel is ready. If there are no more questions, then like Srinivas mentioned, all questions answered? Almost all questions. If it's almost all questions answered, then maybe it is time to thank our panel.
Yeah, Farag, would you please do that?
Okay, so thanks for an invigorating discussion. I think if you notice, there was the right amount of tension in the panel, in the sense that Raja was holding the reality thing, and Pratapa was I think projecting the potential. That's what makes for a good panel. Some of the things that I heard, churn, enterprise IT, what is happening there, M2M, etc., etc. I think that leads me to think about Egypt. Okay, what is happening to Egypt today, for example? Eventually, Egypt, democracy in Egypt is what enterprise IT is going through now. There's so much chaos, confusion there, but I think a leader will emerge, whether it will be Morsi, whether it will be El-Baghdadi, etc., etc. I don't know. Nobody knows. I think the Egyptians don't know. But is it time to go back to the Anwar Sadats and the Hosni Mubaraks? That's not the case at all. I think enterprise IT is exactly like that. By the way, I'm an investor, so I've done venture capital all my life. So that is the view I genuinely hold, not because I'm standing here, but that's a view I genuinely hold. And I think it is the entrepreneurs who are able to see through some of the mist that some of them talked about, Srinivas in particular, talked about. Those are the guys who are going to win, the Nathan Eagles, if you will. Thanks the four of you for the nice discussion.
Well, I request you just give these little tokens of appreciation away. Can we put our hands together for the panel, They are hungry. There's a lot of good. Thank you so much. I can't thank you all enough for making it. And there's dinner served and there's networking, so please do join us up there.
Thank you very much.